Hello and welcome back to Real Estate Real Home Stories. I'm Sue Curlett, and I'm back with John Smith, my wonderful co-host and brother in arms. Right? How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm good today. It was a tough morning, but we got through it.
Yeah.
And
You had a
another happy
settlement today.
client. I had a settlement today. Another happy client. She's on her way. I got more gray hair. The deal
Buyer
with
or seller? Who were you with today?
seller. I
Seller.
represented the seller,
Okay.
and it was a teeth pulling measure with the lender, not only to get updates, but to get to the settlement table. But we are done. So we're
Oh,
on to today's
amen.
podcast.
Amen. Amen. And now you
Amen.
can do the podcast and you can put it all behind you.
Absolutely.
So, what we're going to talk about today, John, is buyer agency and working with buyers, and
Great
why it's
topic.
so important that we get, buyers, sellers, realtors out there. We get a good general understanding of why it's so important to have someone to represent you, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So, we were talking a little earlier and we were talking about how we're paid as a buyer agent versus a seller agent, and we can just describe that basically. When you sit down and you're doing a listing presentation, as we all do, you explain to your seller that, hey, my fees, the real estate fees, are going to be whatever that number is, and they're
Right.
completely negotiable. So as a listing agent, I think some people are going to charge a different amount than other agents. So,
Okay.
fine, meet
It's
with as
okay.
many people as you want, right?
Right.
And then that amount is going to either be shared or co-opt. We call it cooperation,
Right.
right? And that person's going to say, hey, look, buyer agents out there, bring your buyers. I'm going to pay you XYZ.
Right.
And that amount is listed on the MLS.
Yep.
So when you meet with your buyer's agent and they say to you, hey, this is the buyer agent agreement. If you want to work with me, this is the minimum that I'm going to charge you.
Right.
99.9% of the time, that's going to be covered by the
What
listing
the
agent.
listing brokerage agreed to co-op.
Listing
Absolutely.
brokerage. Yeah, I keep
Right.
saying agent, I mean brokerage. So let
Right.
me just specify.
It's exciting to buy your first house. Let's all admit it.
It's very
It's
exciting.
stressful, but it's super exciting.
Absolutely.
And I think what happens is we get so excited about the house, the house, the house, the house.
Yeah,
We forget the steps that come before the house, the house, the house, the house.
absolutely.
And that is finding a reputable agent. Ask friends and
100%.
family in your world, in your circle, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer or whoever. Ask who did you use and what did you like and how was that experience? And then kind of talk to a couple people.
Right.
Um,
We would not be in business if it weren't for our referrals, right? I mean, at this
absolutely.
point,
Yes,
in where we are today, without my previous clients referring their friends and
exactly.
family, I wouldn't be alive. You know what I mean? I would still not be in real estate if that weren't the case. So,
Well, the other thing is that the house is exciting,
yeah,
but believe me, the contract doesn't have so much zip. It's 54, 55 pages now.
yeah,
Some of the stuff is super important. There are legalese in
absolutely.
there. Other stuff is just generic disclosures. But if you can't get if you're not sitting in front of somebody who can explain the 4 or 5 page buyer agency agreement in terms that you understand, we don't expect you to be lawyers or real estate agents.
Right, right, right.
If you're not finding that, it doesn't get better.
No, it doesn't.
It
And
will not improve.
right, right, right. And what is I guess I'll say one of the most important things that I've run into in my history is buyers not understanding how different these transactions can be. So I've never had the same deal twice, right? Like it's never the same. Different personalities, different expectations,
Yep.
different requirements,
Yep.
different HOA rules, different inspection notes, right?
Yep.
Like everything matters. And if you don't have somebody that's walking you through this process, it's the most money chances are you're going to spend in your life.
Yes. Yes.
Most people are investing everything they have into their retirement. I mean, real estate is your retirement, right? I mean,
Yes. For a
like
lot of people,
that's
real estate is your retirement.
real estate is your retirement. So many people tell me, oh no, I've got this and I've got that and I can't take my money out of my 401k because that's my retirement. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, your 401k is part of your retirement plan. Yes.
Yes.
But there's one time in your life that you get to borrow from your 401k plan, your own money.
Yes.
And that's when you purchase a house. And
Yes.
people don't
Yes.
realize
Yes. No.
you can put 20% down because you've worked for that company for 5, 10 years.
Well,
That
here's
money
what.
sitting there. One of the reasons that we're doing this podcast is to be upfront, forward. We're not hiding anything. We want buyers, sellers, and realtors to know exactly how to handle these situations. That's where we are right now, right?
Yeah.
So, um, the expectation is, we were talking to Evan, we were talking to Dave, things are picking up a little bit. I checked this morning in Mount Airy, which is 4 counties. You got Frederick, Howard, Carroll, and Montgomery. I checked this morning. There are 17 houses
Yeah.
detached available. In 4 counties, there's only 17 houses available right now.
Yeah.
If you're a seller, why are you not on the market? Right?
Right.
Why are you not on the market?
Right.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the time to sell when you don't have a gazillion
Yeah.
houses that you're
Yeah.
competing against.
Yeah.
In addition to that, buyers, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for the interest rate to come down. We hear it every day, right, John? You're hearing the same
Yeah.
thing. I'm
Every
waiting for the
day.
rate to come down, waiting for the rate to come down. All right. Well, in the last 2 years, our experience is when the rate comes down, guess what happens?
The
People,
prices go up. Prices go up. The
and they
offers go crazy.
magically come out with cash. When else in our lives have we seen so many cash deals or so many people putting down 20, 30, 40%?
50% or more. Yeah.
Where
All the
where are they
time.
getting the money from? I mean, where wasn't it in the last 17 years before this?
Yeah.
Like, where was that money? Nobody
Well,
had that money.
there are ways to soften the blow, if you will, with as far as pricing. But
Yeah,
the you, the buyers, you should be buying.
you should be
You,
buying
you
right
should be buying,
now.
because if you wait until
Yeah,
interest rates go down even a little bit, it's going to be like knocking the top off of a bottle of soda that you've shaken.
yeah,
The market's going to go from zero to hero overnight,
yeah,
and you're going to be back in the, I got beat out on 8 houses. I mean, literally, I
yeah,
hear this story from buyers agents. We
yeah.
wrote on 8, we wrote on 10. We've been writing for two
Right.
and a half years.
I wrote an offer, $101,000 over full price. We did not get selected. What does that tell you? I mean, first of all, some agents are underpricing the house. That house was definitely underpriced for the area. So shame on that agent, whatever. Secondly, um, it tells us that people are throwing money. Have you ever gone into a casino and watched the gamblers like throw thousands of dollars down
Yeah,
because they're in the moment?
yeah,
That's what we're talking about. That's what
yes.
happened. People were chasing these houses regardless of what they had to do. Um,
Well,
People were paying.
the more important issue is this, Sue.
Yeah,
If the rates go down 1%, the prices are going to go up again.
yeah,
So if you don't like the payment at today's rate, you're not going to like the payment at tomorrow's price.
right.
Hey,
Absolutely right. I
buyers
mean,
out there,
people,
hear this. Marry the house, not the rate.
yeah.
You can
I know
change the
that,
rate.
right. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell you for certain that this rate is going to go down, but like do your homework, right? Talk to all the financial people, figure out, call your lenders, talk to your lenders, say, what are you expecting to take place?
Yep.
Evan was talking about it going back down in the threes. If that happens, there's going to be a frenzy again, right? Would you rather buy a house right now and then be able to refinance it in 6 months at
A
that
year, right?
3% rate and
Yeah.
not pay more money for it? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
I think that rates are mid to high sixes. I think
Yeah.
if I think a nice soft sweet spot
Yeah.
would probably be somewhere around 5% would be a sweet spot. I don't know that we really want to go through the economic struggles to get back to rates at 3%, because
But it's going to
something
happen. I
else will
mean,
be going on
yeah,
that
it's going
that
to happen. I
it,
think it's going to happen. It's going to dip down. Now, whether it hits three or not, who knows? We would,
who
again,
knows?
we'd need a crystal ball to be able to tell you
Right.
that. But we can tell you that when it dips, you got to be ready. And you need 6 months in your first mortgage, right? If not, there's fees, there's all kinds of stuff that your lender's going to have to pay. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to come out if you don't
Right.
keep that loan for six
Yeah.
months. So, when you hit that refi button, that's September right now. If you closed April 1st, you'd be able to refi in September, right? That's
Yeah.
six
Yeah.
months.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, any way you look at it, September, October, November, before the election, right before
Right.
the election, is when I expect these rates to dip down. Maybe I'm wrong, can't say, but
I think the other thing is there's like a normal ebb and flow for a buyer,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
A buyer who said, okay, I've got my credit score is to 680. We have $20,000 we've been saving over the last year or two.
yeah,
I'm ready to go. That process really looks like interview agents,
absolutely.
get a lender recommendation. You may belong to a credit union. I'm
Yeah,
okay with
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
But get a lender recommendation from the agent, because the agent's on the ground and the agent's doing the work, and the
yeah.
agents know, ooh, stay away from them, or this guy's really good and I've
Hmm.
known him for a long time. And
How
then what
many?
happens is once you get that pre-approval, then you go into the queue to actually really start talking to your buyer's agent about what the target properties are, where they're located, where you want to live, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, one garage, basement, no basement,
Absolutely.
condos, townhouses, whatever that may be.
Yeah,
And then you honestly, I can go one time, I can go one time out with a client who's told me their criteria,
yeah,
and I can show a couple houses, and then based on the oohs and ahs and the dialogues that we have, can go back right back into the
yeah,
MLS, pull up two or three more, take into those, and one of those will absolutely be the one.
yeah. I think
Because we
that
do this
what
all
you're
the time.
saying is really important because agents out there, new agents, old agents, doesn't really matter. You have to know your buyer. You have to know what it is they like
Right.
because it's not you. You're not buying the house. So you can't be looking at properties going, "Oh, look at this. This is great." Everybody's got different taste. Somebody might want a rancher. Somebody might want an old Victorian. Somebody might
Right.
want brand new construction. Somebody might
Right.
want gray paint. What it doesn't matter. I mean, the bottom line is when you go out with your clients and you sit back and you watch and you listen and you learn, which is hard for all of us because we all talk all the time, right? I'm like the biggest talker ever. But when you go in there and you just sit back and watch, you don't have to say a word. They're going to tell you when it's the right house for them. You're
Yeah.
going to see it. You know what I mean? There's no hiding the fact that they love that house. They're skippy. Like, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, their steps are a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
looking at each other. You can see the fit. And when you see that, that's when you have to ask your questions. What is it about this house that's so great for you guys? You're
Right.
both looking at it. I tell my buyers, scale your homes because how many times have you come home or, got a call a couple days later and the buyer says, um, I thought my husband really would like that house. So I said I liked it. And we sat down and we just put an offer on this property and neither one of us really liked it. We just thought each other really liked it. You guys
Whew.
got to be honest with each other, right?
Yeah.
I tell all my buyers, you got a scale of 1 to 10. If it's not an 8, forget it. Because
Right.
your husband might be like, this is a 10, this is a 10, this is a 10. And you're like, this is a 6 for me. But I'm going to say it's an 8 because I'll just love him enough. Right? Because he liked
Yeah.
it. But guess what? That is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. If you're anything like my husband and I, you know, it would pop up in every conversation. Remember, I let you get the house you wanted because you said it was
Yeah.
a 10. Remember, I didn't like this house. Remember, 8 or better. It's got to be an 8 or better for both sides.
So I think the other thing that especially first time buyers fail to
Yeah.
really understand is this is this is not like your grandparents who bought a house and they lived there 38 years and
Yeah.
raised their kids
Yeah.
and watched their grandchildren come.
Right.
We as a society are well beyond that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That we change jobs regularly, we change industries if you're a young
Yeah.
millennial, whatever, 30-year
Yeah.
old. And so realistically, the house is about a 5 to 7 year venture.
You've
Because if
got
you're young, things change in your life, right?
absolutely.
There's
And I
there's
think
new
statistically,
additions, there's job changes, there's
yeah.
relocations.
Right.
So it only really has to fit your life today.
Yeah.
And don't worry about 30 years down the road because more than likely, in 5, 6, 7 years, you'll be on the phone or texting me saying, we
Right.
saw such and such and we're thinking about making the move. How many times, Sue, do you get that text over the Christmas holidays?
Oh
Well,
yeah.
got another listing for January. Oh, got one for February. Oh,
Yep.
got one for March.
Yeah.
And around the holidays, this is when people sit down and they have time to reflect. And
Yeah.
they're like, you know what? Let's make a move and let's move closer to your parents or my
Yeah.
parents or
Right.
we need to move closer where there are things for the kids to do. I made the mistake of taking my kids and putting them on 7 acres in Carroll County.
Yeah.
And I missed all the targets and all the signals. I really did. I
Yeah.
thought everybody was clued in with me. They weren't.
Yeah.
I was out of there in about 4 years.
Yeah. It really depends a lot on what you like, right? I mean, most people I think do 4 transactions. You have your starter home, and that's where you're getting started. You're starting to build your family. And one thing that I swear by, and I have clients that'll come on here and tell you, I put it in the water. New house, new baby, right? Does it not happen all the time?
Yep.
So you buy a 3 bedroom, and then within a year, you got number three coming along, and now you need 4 bedrooms. So you need to upgrade, right?
Right.
Then the kids go off to college, and you've got this 3, 4,000 square foot house, and you need a smaller house. So there's number three, and then you've got your retirement home, and that's
Right.
number four. So you know what I mean? There's a lot of times, and that's not even counting the moves for work. That's just traditionally, I think most people are going to own 3 to 4 houses in their lifetime. So if you take care of them, agents, realtors out there,
Yeah.
then you're going to be their agent. I'm finally at the point where I'm getting calls from my clients, and their kids were 4 or 5 years old when they bought their house, and they're
Yep.
calling me going, you know
It's time to get rid
Steven
of it.
needs a house, can you help him? And I'm like, I'm selling your kids houses now. Did I get old?
Yep.
You know
Yep.
what I mean? But
Yep.
it's there, and that's what happens if you treat your people right. I made some notes. So we were talking, you said the contract, right? We're
Yep.
talking 40 to 50 pages
50,
of
54,
legal
55.
disclosure and
Yep.
contract.
Yep.
How many times have you in your history had to call the other agent and say, you missed this, you missed that, you need to do
All the
this, you need to do
time.
that? Like,
Yeah.
there's things that your realtor, and it doesn't matter if you're in Maryland, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Texas, it doesn't matter. Those contracts are binding. And if
Yes.
you're signing, I've had agents send me documents that are signed for the HOA transmittal of documents. So, what I mean by that is that they're accepting a form in the very beginning saying that they've received documents that haven't even been ordered yet. And
Right.
the agent's allowing that to take place. So, you've got to know what
Right.
you're signing. It's very important. And if you're not going to read the whole thing, make sure you're comfortable with your agent. And
Right.
realtors out there, please pay attention. I mean, you don't want to have to go back and forth 10 times to your buyers or sellers and say, this matters.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many agents have accepted my offers because they're like, thank you so much for putting this offer together so clearly for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It matters.
It does matter. It does
It
matter.
matters.
And I'll
100%.
I'll tell you just things in our world change so often
Every day.
and so quickly
Yes.
and like Sue said, every day. I think it was 2 years ago or maybe last year, Normally in October, after the legislative session in Annapolis,
Yeah.
they'll
Meet
say,
for 'em.
here are the things that we change in the contract. There'll be a list, right?
Yeah.
I think last year we had 2 or 3 changes midstream,
Huge
the
changes.
things that they
The
changed.
the inspections addendum changed last
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
Huge.
yeah.
That was probably the biggest change that I saw.
Well, I think the other change now, hello, buyers, listen, the contract prior was written not as is. The contract
Mm-hmm.
today is an as is contract with a section in the contract, whether you opt in for inspections or you're opting out.
Yes.
And so
And
this the whole point of this, buyers, is that Sue and I are telling you that talent matters.
absolutely.
And the talent should represent your interests
Yes.
undivided. So they
Right.
shouldn't have a side distraction, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't want to sound like a hater of teams.
You've gotta have a comfortable relationship. The first thing you need to do when you are a buyer and you start looking for homes is you hire your agent.
Agent,
You
right?
hire your realtor.
Whose loyalty is to you,
Is to you, right? And if you're uncomfortable with it, make sure you understand the buyer broker agreement
right?
and make sure that that termination clause is what you're happy with.
Right.
Like, it's in there. There's nothing to be scared of. You're
No,
not marrying that person. And if you're
no,
not comfortable with that, go find somebody else. There's
right.
thousands of us out here, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to um
It's not an entrapment ploy.
no, 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 no. And so many people just think that by signing that, that they are locked in. You're not locked in. If you have a termination clause in there, then fine. You know what I mean? Terminate the agreement.
And it should be pretty straightforward
Yes.
what that agreement is. We've discussed this before on the
Yeah, we
podcast.
have talked about it before in other podcasts.
But the thing is, hire your talent up front before you go
100%.
skip-a-doo-loo into 10 open houses. I actually had a buyer last year tell me this is the way she and her partner search.
Oh
They
gosh.
go online to like Facebook Marketplace and for sale by owner.
For Facebook Marketplace for
List
listings?
list them, yep. And
Okay.
then they carve out the open houses for the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And they go out and look at the houses themselves without an agent. God only knows what conversations they're having
Yeah.
with people and what
Right?
information they are disclosing about themselves to somebody they don't even know.
The
And
worst
get
thing you can
this,
do.
get this. These people are actually letting these people in their house to tour their house that they don't know. Talk about a Stephen King novel right here, right?
Yeah.
And I said, that's not how real estate's done. And she goes, that's the way we're going to do it.
Okay.
And
Good
she said
luck.
to me, I said, well, do you at
Good luck.
least have a pre-approval? She goes, no, if I find something I like, I'll go get that.
Yeah, and you're going to go into someone's home and you're going to disrespect the fact that you're in there and you don't even have a pre-approval yet. I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, we're really in one of those times where the industry has become so bad for some people that
Yeah,
they're scared of us.
yeah,
That's why you've got to hire somebody you are comfortable with.
right,
Ask the questions. I will sit down for hours with somebody and tell them whatever they want to know.
right,
You know what I mean? You're buying a person that's going to work with you.
right,
How many times do we run into a situation where we do everything we can for somebody, but maybe the spouse is upset that you sold the house? I had a seller, right? That his girlfriend didn't want to sell the house. Like, she absolutely did not want to sell it, but it was his house. He came to me, said, I have to have one level of living. I want a condo. Can you find me a condo? You have to sell my townhouse. It's too many steps. I need to get my knees replaced. You know what I mean? He
yeah,
was getting older. He needed one level of living.
yeah,
Well, I ended up going out and we listed his house. We put in the listing agreement that buyer has the right to find his home of choice.
right,
So we ended up selling it 30,000 over full price, 6,000 or 10,000 over the appraised value, right? This is 2 years ago. And oh gosh, and a free 60-day rent back. So he was able to settle 30 days after these people put an offer in, we had like 6 or 7 offers. 30 days later, he goes to settlement, and then 60 days starts for him to be able to go find a house. Now, I'm watching this process, and the wife is very angry that he's selling this townhouse. And so she's not even going with us. He's going out. He's looking at these condos. He's the client, really.
Right.
She's not going to be on the loan. She's not buying a house. It's not her house. It's being sold, whatever. They're not married. They just have been together for a long time. And she wrote comments online about how that I sold her house, um, and basically I sold their house out from under them.
Yep.
The bottom line is we are in a crazy place. If
Yeah.
your agent gets you 30,000 over full price, finds you exactly what you're looking for, what you're asking for, your communication is off between those two people, not you and your agent.
Right.
So when you tell your agent, I need no stairs, right? No
Right.
stairs. And then you come back and say, well, no, I want a townhouse again because this person's that upset. Why did we sell your house? Why did we do that?
Yeah.
You had this ideal home that you made your home for 30 years. You just sold it. We can't get out of that. So that communication between the buyer, seller, I'm sorry, between the new buyers when they're going to sell and buy
Yeah.
needs to be very clear,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter if that person's going to live with you. It doesn't matter if you're the only one on the loan, right?
Right.
It matters that this person also has a voice, and if that voice is there, make sure your agent knows that voice is there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's
No,
hard. It's a hard thing to negotiate, to get through.
I've had similar where I got a call from a young girl. She was referred to me, or I had a listing, and she she wanted to. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a condo. And she
Yeah.
goes, we're not really on the same page, but I'm not married to him. We're just boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, well, I'll move with you. No big deal. I just, I'm not at a place where I'm ready to be a homeowner. And she
Or
said,
with
fine.
you, right? I
Right.
mean,
Or yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We get a lot of young couples who aren't married, right? And strangely enough, I always have the conversation, and I forewarn them that I'm going to have the talk, right? I call it the parental talk, right? And
I
I say,
can't wait to tell
listen.
you about
I said,
that.
look, I understand you guys are just starting out. I'm not saying you should skip on down to the chapel and do the duty.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that you just swore a promise and an allegiance to a bank to
Yeah.
make the payments on a 30-year loan,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're friends, lovers, partners,
Doesn't
or
matter.
whatever you are. And I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I think it's great. So anyway, back to my situation.
Yeah.
She said, look, he doesn't want to be a buyer. I'll buy it. He'll live with me. If we ever decide that a relationship becomes official, I'll add his name to it, right? And
Right.
I asked several times, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And so she says, no, he's fine. He's fine, right? So we share properties, right? She goes, I like these better. We share properties. Probably over a week, we're going to go out on like a Friday after work or something like that.
Yeah.
I say to her, okay, I've got them scheduled from like 4 to 6.
Right.
She goes, we need to do them after 6:30.
Because the boyfriend has to come. Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
look, I asked you like a half dozen times, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, I would like them to see them. I said, I understand. Why
Yeah.
don't we see them first? Because if it's not even something you're going to consider, he doesn't need to see it.
Nope.
So,
The
so
I'm gonna.
it didn't work out well because I became the boyfriend hater, which wasn't my position.
Right.
But you have to ask. These situations are very and divorces are sometimes the absolute worst.
They're the worst. I mean, and we're in the middle of that, right? So when we are dealing with parents, we're dealing with significant others, we're dealing with all of these people that are not on the loan.
Right.
Let us know who really matters,
Who's
because
the player?
who's the player? Who do you want to listen to? I, by all means, listen to my father. If my dad says something, it's pretty much like, I may not choose to do what he tells me because I really don't listen to anybody. But the bottom line is that if I'm going to listen to anybody, it's going to be my dad. If my dad's like, I don't think that you're going to like this house, or this is not a decision that I would make. He's never been very forceful, but he is direct. And I listen to that. I mean, out of respect. Um, let your agent know, my
Yeah.
father's opinion is really going to matter on this,
Right.
because that way we know we at least need to have him at the home inspection. We want to work with you in the best possible way that we can.
Right.
Right, we're going to go out, we're going to find this house, and then we also, as buyers agents, okay, so again, here's where it matters, we need to make sure we can get you out, right? Like, if you don't want the house after the home
Right.
inspection, if you decide that dad's going to come in at the home inspection and then he's going to have a really big opinion, why didn't we bring dad in the beginning before you spent the money on the home inspection? You know what I mean? So it
So
matters.
I had a condo listing in Piney Orchard.
Yeah.
I worked with the seller. We did a beautiful job. We did I would say a light renovation with some countertops, painting,
Yeah.
fixes, etc.,
Made it
and
pretty.
put it on the market. And in 3 days, I had a handful of offers. We took an offer. Um, they wanted a home inspection. Okay.
All right.
So they did tell me that the father is from Wyoming and he's going to fly in on the weekend for the
Yeah.
inspection. And I said, great. And then the agent says to me, her father's a builder in Wyoming. I said, hold on. I said, I hope this is not going to be a problem. And she
Yeah.
says, problem? And I said, so trust me, her father it plays an important role in her life.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to be surprised when you call me on Saturday and you say,
He doesn't like it.
the dad doesn't want her to buy it. I said,
Yep.
so I'll wait for your call on Saturday. And sure enough, the call. Dad says he's never seen worse construction. Now, this condo was like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, we know how they build them here, right? And
And
so,
it's a
back,
condo. You don't own the building.
right,
It's
right, 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 right.
relevant.
So,
Right.
fortunately for my seller, I stayed in touch with a couple other offers,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
I called those agents. I said, look, I think we're going to get a release. Um, and then I put a quick post on Facebook
Yeah.
that buyers having second thoughts. And I got a call in 20 minutes from
Yep.
a fellow agent, and he actually bought it for his wife's parents, cash.
Okay. Yeah.
So it does happen. We just need to know who, you know. And sometimes the kids will say to me, "I know my dad said no, but my dad's not making my payments." I mean, honestly,
Goes both ways.
when I bought my first house, I didn't tell my mother what I paid for it.
Yeah.
My mother still
It
takes
depends on,
to
right.
her death. To her death, I
She
bought
didn't
my
know.
first house in McLean, Virginia for $9,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. This
Exactly.
is in 1960.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So it
the
goes either
worst
way.
situation I ever had was a client, or a friend, a neighbor called me and said, Sue, my mom's had her house on the market for like 6 months. It's not moving. Can you go look at it? She's going to terminate her agreement with her agent because they're just not moving it.
Right.
So I go out there and I'm looking at the house and I'm like, why is it priced? It was priced at like 350. This is clearly a 425, 450 house, right? So I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, this was not when it was the market that we're in right now, where you underprice it so people come and bid on it. People were just ignoring it. I mean, there's got to be something wrong. If you're not priced right, you're going to get the know everybody's, right? That they know it all. And they're going to say, oh, well, there must be something wrong with it because it's priced $100,000 less than it should be. So I went out there and I literally upped the sales price by, I think, 75,000. So we'd get a quick quick offer. Within a week, we get an offer, and it's a buyer that comes to me. And she's like, I don't have an agent, but I'd like to put an offer on. And I explained to her that I represent the seller. But if she wants to give me an offer, certainly I can, show her the comps, show her where the price is.
Yeah,
Now,
facilitate. Yep.
let's learn from that. Did I tell her that the price was 350 when it was previously listed? Absolutely not. That doesn't represent my seller. If I represented her as a buyer's agent, would I have pulled the history on the property and said, why was this house listed for 350? Yes. Right? So it doesn't really matter in that regard.
Yeah, but
But long
if it
story short,
appraises, it doesn't matter.
yeah, long story short, I get to we get to the lady coming in. I meet with her boyfriend. And when you meet with a couple and you're just like, they're in the honeymoon phase. You can just tell that they're newly together. People don't act the same way after they've been together for 6 years. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen. So literally, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so fine, he can come help you pick the house. You guys are going to be together. He's going to pay part rent
Yeah.
for you, right? I mean, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
you're buying the house together. Um, she calls me and she goes, he called and asked me to put him on title. And I'm like, oh, here comes the conversation.
Right.
I said, you might want to talk to an attorney. I'm not an attorney, so I can't advise you on this. But
Yep.
from one woman to another, he's not going to be on the loan. You guys aren't married. It's your credit that's at risk. Do you want to, you don't have to put him on title. You can add him when you get married, for a
Right.
couple $100. You can just put him on when you
Yep.
guys decide to do
To make
that.
it official. Right.
Make it official, right? And she's like, no, I want to be committed to him. My children shouldn't get the house if something happens to me because he's going to be paying half of it. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. You've got grown children. You're not married. You're with this guy who clearly is starting to ask you to go on title to, have some ownership in this house.
Yeah.
But he's not taking on any of the responsibility. And so I said, look, how long have you guys been together? John, guess. Guess how long they were together.
3 months.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
I have a seller who moved to Frederick County in the last year, and I sold her the house in 2017.
Yeah.
In Baltimore County, and we got a great deal from the seller. The seller had rented the property for years, fixed it up for us. I mean,
right.
He didn't do a new kitchen, but he cleaned the house up, put new flooring, new windows.
Yeah, it was ready to go.
Blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So she carried out of that townhouse $125,000-$35,000 in equity.
Yeah.
And though she was married to this guy, right?
Right.
He was the father of her children. She took all of her money and plunked it into the house. Even though
the new house.
The new house.
Right.
It all down, right?
Yeah.
So immediately that money is commingled.
It's shared. Right. Well, they're married. So, I mean, a lot of times,
Yeah.
depending on the state you're in,
yeah,
that money
I
shared
see it
anyway.
all the time. I see it all the
right.
time.
All the time.
With young, uncommitted folks.
Right.
And you get the call about putting them on the title. And
yes.
I just have my title partner explain it to her.
Me too.
Here's the different types of ownership.
My title officer sat down with her and said, look, what if it doesn't work out? If something happens to you, they were buying it in a way that he would get 100% of the house if she died.
Yeah.
Now, think about that. You've got grown children that are going to get nothing from you because you've just taken all of your money, put it into this property. And now your boyfriend of 3 weeks is going to be your co-owner because you put him on title. He's not the co-borrower.
Oh, no, he has no obligation to pay.
He didn't borrow a dime. Right.
No.
It's
He's
your
free
money.
to go.
She took her 401k money, put it into this property. And he didn't, I don't know that he put a dime in.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I don't know that he put a dime in. If he did, great. I would hope so. 2 years later, the house is up for auction through a foreclosure.
Yep.
And I'm just shaking my head going, wow, I wish we could have got through to that woman just so she could understand. It's not our job. We're not lawyers. We're not title officers. We're not going to stop you, buyers. We're not going to stop you. We're just
No.
going to tell you, hey, if you choose to do this, then, that ownership is going over there. Um,
This is
and
all the
she
important. These are
shared it
all
with
the
me.
important scenarios why you need somebody in your corner
You just
that
need someone.
represents your interests.
Absolutely.
It's hard to find houses. We'll
Yeah.
all both tell you that it if you're lucky enough to only write 3 contracts to get a house contract accepted,
Right now,
you're very fortunate. Um, Sue told you Mount Airy, 4 counties, 17 homes,
that's it.
detached, and those 17 houses, the majority of those 17 houses were north of $1 million.
Absolutely. They literally, there's three that are over a million. And then the rest of them are between like, 6 and 9, 6 and a million. And then you've got maybe one or two. I think there was one shack like place
I know where it
that
is.
was 350. And I'm like, oh my
I know
gosh,
where that
what
is.
is going on here?
Yeah,
So buyers, this is the best time, even though there's not a lot of inventory, because you're not going to be writing and competing against 10 people. You might be
right,
competing against two,
right.
maybe three right now. So now that changes. If you've got the ideal move-in ready house, there's going to be buyers that are going to be competing against you right now just because the
Yeah,
inventory is so low.
yeah,
But when that rate comes down, it's going to be game on.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
Everybody I know agrees with that.
so for those buyers who actually one or both work remotely, um, there's
Yeah.
wonderful areas that are a little more remote than, say living in the city. And
Yeah.
there are programs out there, just as an example of one, because I've done them a couple times.
Yeah.
Frederick County is a hot spot for these. They're called
Yeah.
USDA.
I do them all the time.
There are rural housing loans. They used to be part of the Department of Agriculture, hence USDA,
Uh-huh.
but it's been pulled into the Federal Housing Authority so that when we have a government shutdown, that program doesn't get shut down.
Yeah.
Um, and there's no money down,
Nope.
um,
100% financing.
100% financing.
Hmm.
I have seen it be so successful to so many
Especially
to so
for,
many buyers.
you got to qualify for it though. I mean, the loan itself is, the debt to income is going to be much higher. So,
Yeah,
you're not going to qualify for the same USDA house that you will for an FHA loan.
yeah, yeah,
Um, the numbers are just different, and the lender can walk you through that. But
yeah,
so you're not going to qualify for much, and you have to meet a certain median income for the area. So the house has to qualify, you have to qualify.
yeah.
And if you make over, if you have a family of two, you have one number. If you have a family of three, I think it's 1 to 4 is a certain number. And then if you have a family of five, then that qualification is a little bit higher.
Yeah.
It's not like you can make $30,000 though, like some of the loans that are out there that you get grants and
It's
stuff.
it's it's not designed for people who already have means. It's
Exactly. It's
designed for
for
people who don't
for
have means.
for people that would normally buy in a rural area, farmers,
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
are not in city limits. A lot of times the city, once you get into the city limits, the house is not gonna
No,
qualify.
no, no, no. But you can,
So
and they have a beautiful website that you can search properties. It'll tell you whether the property sits eligible. And I'll tell you,
absolutely.
usually streets are like literally the dividing line. So
Right.
I was showing houses in Carroll County, and my client really dug the house. I mean, it was kind of quirky, old farmhouse, but
Yeah.
he really liked it.
He liked
And
it. Yeah.
I pulled it up on my phone. I said, not eligible. He
No,
goes,
yeah.
no. And I
Yeah.
said, see that foreclosure across the street? And you could barely see the house because everything had grown up. I go, that's
Is.
eligible.
Yeah.
He
I
goes,
mean, the
that's
line, there's
crazy.
a line, just like a
It
school
was a
district,
street.
right? Like
It
it's
was a
literally,
street.
there's a line.
Yep.
if you're in Carroll County and Frederick County, Mount Airy. So we were talking about Mount Airy. I live in Mount Airy, so that kind of, um, gives you a good idea of why I'm always looking at Mount Airy, because, I live here. And if you're going down Main Street in Mount Airy, the houses on the right are Frederick County, the houses on the left are Carroll County.
Yep.
And people will say, well, I want to go to this school district. And it's like, okay, well, then you need to cross the street, because there's
Yep.
no way you're crossing county lines. It's just
Yep.
not going to happen. You can't jump over there and hop on their bus.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way. So buyers, I can tell you that more times than not, um, within 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to teach you 10 things you didn't know.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I'm going to teach you 10 things you didn't know that are going to help you through the buy purchase. And you're not going to pay me a dime for that information.
Right.
Right. It's just, you're not going to.
Right.
Buyer. Okay. So the lady I was talking about earlier, right? She calls me and she goes, the builder didn't tell me that the taxes were going to be $10,000 on this property, the new construction. She's like, I had, this farm and I only paid $3,000 for 60 acres or whatever it was. And now I'm going to pay $10,000. And I didn't know that, because buyers, if you look at new construction, guess what the taxes are? Zero. You got to actually be able to go to the contractor and say, or the builder, and say, what are the taxes going to be on this new construction property?
Yeah.
Because on the MLS, they're zero.
Yeah.
They might even be like $220, because that's on the land that the house, before the house was actually built, that the builder had to pay in taxes on that little parcel. So most of the time it's well under $1,000. Right. So you're going to get all this representation for well under $1,000. Now, to finish that story, she calls me. Her husband and her son were in business together, and they did a lot of developing, or they did a lot of flipping, with me. So I had bought and sold a number of homes with them. And when he passed, she went out. She wanted to get out of the house. She went to this builder. The builder said, I can save you $7,000 if you're not represented. And she said, well, I've worked with the same agent my husband and my son have worked with for a long time. But, if I can save money, then I'll save money, And she calls me and she goes, Sue, I don't know what happened. Now it's a $10,000 tax bill. Can you help me? Well, I'll look at the contract for you, but I don't represent you. You know what I mean? Like, I can't help you. I can't help you. So I look at the contract, and John, I'm not making this up. On the contract that she sent me a copy of, it's not her contract. It was the general contract.
Yeah,
the builder forgot to take out the $18,000 contribution he gave to the buyer before her.
Oh.
Right? He forgot to take it out. Oh. And he just told her he was going to give her $7,000.
I think he's going to give her 18.
If she was with me, she would have gotten 18.
Yep.
Right? Because I would have saw it and been like, oh, no. He just offered this person $18,000. We're going to tell him, you sent us a contract that shows $18,000. Our contract, she allowed him to change it to $7,000. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's killing me, because she's one of the nicest people. She thought she was going to make out better by doing it on her own. Who can blame her? She's going through enough. You know what I mean? No harm, no foul. I tried to help her. I even introduced her to an attorney to try to get out of the contract. So, because she didn't know the taxes were going to be that high. She didn't know she was going to be in the city limits and have a city tax.
Okay.
None of that was told to her. All of which would have been explained had she purchased through me or even another realtor. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you need that experience if you're going to go spend $700,000, which I think was about the sales price of the property that she ended up buying.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I had at the time I held both licenses. Well, we didn't license mortgage loan officers.
Oh, like
back
loan
then,
officer.
if you worked for the mortgage company or bank, that was enough, right? So I had helped him save some money on his house in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And it was a client of mine The wife was her hairdresser, and she said, can you help us save some money? And
Yeah.
so I helped them through refinancing, save some money. Anyway, they said that they were considering looking to move, and if in their dream they wanted to move to Shipley's Grant, which is in like Severna Park,
Yeah, I know. I know that area.
Millersville, Severna Park. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I get a call on a text on a Monday.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I need to talk to you. I
Yeah.
said, okay.
Right? What?
So I call him up. His name was Craig. I'm not going to give his last name because God
Right.
knows if he's listening to
Yeah,
this.
don't
Anyway,
don't do that. Right.
I said, okay, what happened? He goes, we're on the way to Shipley's Grant, and an acquaintance of Wendy was her name,
Yeah.
is having a birthday party for her 6-year-old, and we were invited. And we're driving through there. I always have told you I love this neighborhood. And what do we see? An open house.
Oh yeah.
And so I can speed this story up. They walk in, fall in love. The agent who represents the seller says, well, you have a house to sell, and I don't know that the seller would be comfortable accepting your contract unless I list your property.
Yeah.
They said, okay, well, come look at it, right? We don't even know if the seller's going to accept the contract. So he comes and looks at it. Next thing you know, this guy's selling their house contingent upon, buying the other house. And now Craig doesn't
Yep.
like what's going on and
Yep.
wants to sever the relationship.
And still buy the house that he wants.
No, he wanted to get out of buying that house,
Oh.
but he was definitely going to buy a house.
Yeah.
So he says to me, I want you to call their broker and tell them that we're not going through with it. I said, Craig,
Uh-huh.
maybe you must have mistaken me for an attorney, but I am not.
Exactly.
And I said, the rules of engagement don't allow me to now say, oh, I represent them,
Yeah.
because you don't have an agreement. I know what you want me to do, and I
Right.
certainly understand your pain, but I can't call them. I
We
said,
can't
you
help
can
you.
call
Right.
them and ask to sit down and speak to the sales manager, and you can relay your frustrations and angst and see if you can, in that, they bought a house. They sold
Yep.
their house and bought a
It's
house.
it's sad because we're doing this, John. You and I are both full time. So we're doing this 7 days a week
Yeah,
for I'm 19, you're 20 years.
yeah,
I promise you that I know a little bit more than you do. Not you personally,
yeah,
but buyers. I promise you I
yeah,
probably know a little
yeah,
bit more than you do about real estate. And if an agent is telling you, oh, well, if you buy it directly from me, I've had it happen too. I've had the same exact thing happen. That's a crook, right? I mean, that's somebody misrepresenting their client.
right.
They're telling you my seller won't sell because your house isn't listed with me. And I've had the same exact thing happen.
Yeah,
And you just kind of laugh and go, you know what? I promise you that seller's going to take the green cash the same way from me as
yep,
they are from you.
exactly,
And you're going to be protected.
exactly,
Um, it's all about money.
right,
So if you are going to have an agent tell you that their seller's not going to accept something before they've even talked to their seller,
right.
you're dealing with a crook, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. They're not
Well,
representing their seller. They're telling you what they want as an agent.
so buyers out there, here's what sellers tell us, right? We go to the
Yeah,
house, we see the house, we talk to the person, the couple, the partners about the sale
right.
of their house. They say the reason we're hiring an agent, and I hear this majority of the time, I'm busy, I have children, and I don't want to run a parade through my house on a Saturday and Sunday. That is your job, listing agent. And then I'll take your advice on what offer may make the most sense to my family.
Right.
That's what they say. They don't say, oh, well, if a buyer comes and is not represented, can you save me $7,000?
That's right.
They
They're
don't
not.
say that. They know there's a
They know,
cost
right?
involved in selling their house.
Yeah.
They
I
they don't want their agent to represent the buyer. They do not. They
Right,
feel
right.
like it's a conflict.
The last deal, one of the last deals that I closed, had my blood pressure. We talked about it. I mean, I was so upset with this other realtor, and it takes a lot because I've dealt with so many bad agents that it takes a lot to get me really riled up. This
Yep.
guy had me riled more than I'd been in years. Like, I couldn't understand how he thought it was okay to negotiate on his seller's behalf without speaking to a seller.
Yeah.
And like, it's not right. It's not right. It's not fair. You're not doing your seller any service.
Right.
It's not up to you to negotiate on behalf of your seller without your seller's knowledge.
Right.
Like, understand, if they're trying to do that,
Mm.
buyers agents, realtors, buyers, then you're dealing with a really troubled soul that is trying to get an extra 5 grand, get an extra $3,000. And the risk that they're doing on your contract, this guy, like, I'll bring it up again because we've talked about it before. We had a clear to close at 3 o'clock. Okay, this was in Maryland. So in the state of Maryland, you cannot have a dry settlement,
Nope.
meaning, right, a dry settlement means you go to closing and there's no money in the bank. The
Right.
money from the lender has to be in the title officer's possession or the attorney's possession
Yes.
before those keys can be handed out in the state of Maryland.
Yep.
I know it's different in every states, in other states, but in Maryland, we're talking about this specific deal. It can't happen. So when you go and you say, look, we're not going to have the money in time. We got clear to close at 3 o'clock from the lender. And clear to close means go to settlement.
Right.
Go in there. The money's being sent. The
Yep.
paperwork's being sent. We're done. Go buy your house, right? The
Yeah.
problem is it's 3 o'clock on a Friday. You can't settle because you don't have the money. So you got to get bumped to Monday. This agent actually said to me, knowing that, like, during the conversation, knowing he hasn't talked to a seller at all, well, now we can renegotiate because you're asking for an extension. John, we had clear to close. Like,
Right.
literally had clear to close,
Right.
and he's trying to renegotiate for his buyer. Now, let me be clear, people out there. When you renegotiate a deal, right, everything starts over. Everything begins again. If you're coming down by 5 grand in the sales price, which is what he wanted to do, he wanted to, or no, I'm sorry, he wanted the seller to pay $5,000 more, um, or the buyer to pay $5,000 more to his seller. So we need a new appraisal. We
Yeah.
need
I go
to
back to underwriting.
we got to go back through underwriting. We're going to extend this not till Monday morning when we
No.
could have closed. We're going to extend it again for weeks, right? Weeks. Now, in addition to that, now you have planted a seed in this buyer's house, in this buyer's head, that says they're totally taking advantage of me. Do I really want this house?
Right.
And you just cost your seller the entire deal, because guess what? They're going to say, no, thank you. We don't want to renegotiate. We actually found another house that we like more. Have a
Right.
nice day, cafe.
Yeah.
Right? You did it at Realtor. You did it. Shame on you. Shame, shame, shame.
Yep.
There's no other way to put it. You just set up your seller to
Yep.
lose the transaction and start over again.
Yep.
Know
Well,
what you're doing.
so, and I know we've covered this.
Yeah.
Dates in contracts are important.
So, tell us what's going on. We are going to try to work with you, right? We want the transactions to be as easy and as simple as possible. Honey gets the bee. I tell my friends all the time, or my clients all the time, honey gets the bee. Why are we being mean? Why are we being, horrible to each other in these transactions? Yes, it's stressful. Some people are not made for real estate, and you'll know real quick when you
Yep.
get in it.
They're not.
They're just not made for it. Right.
They're not.
They can do another job very, very well, but
Yep.
they get in this and it's intimidating. You've got to have thick skin. I can't tell you how many times I've come home and been like, I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to be
Right.
a realtor anymore. And, the next day I'm like, okay, but yeah, I do. I just had a bad day. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It
Yeah.
happens. Um, but it happens a lot. And this is not an easy job.
But these dates have consequences.
Absolutely.
If you've missed a response deadline in a home
It's
inspection
over.
negotiation,
Yep.
it's over.
It's over. Yep. How
Over.
many times? And so when you're negotiating your deal, buyers, and you say, okay, well, I want 10 days to do a home inspection. In a regular market, that might be okay. But right now, they're going to have 3-day inspection turnaround times. They're going to have 5-day home inspection turnaround times. So now all of a sudden, when you're providing that offer, you need to be able to say to your buyer, look, the market is showing an average of a 3 to 5 day turnaround on home inspections. You're asking for 14 days. That's going to make your offer look bad.
Yeah.
You don't need 14 days. And if you're going to be out of town for 7 of those days, okay, let's try to get it done before you leave, or let's try to get it done the
Right.
day you get back.
Right.
And then as an agent, you can call the listing agent and say, look, my client only needs this 8 days because they're going to be out of town for 7 of it.
Right.
So the inspector's going to come
Yeah.
on day 8. Just want you to know we're not trying to extend this thing for you.
Right.
So, when your contract is going up against 10 other contracts, make sure your realtor knows how to write a contract, knows how to negotiate a contract. We're missing that. It's missing, John, right?
Yes.
I mean, do you
Yeah.
not agree?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
negotiation piece is missing. People are acting like it's not important, and when it's probably the most important thing that you can do for your seller or buyer.
Yep.
But, I mean, that's how I feel. I feel like we're just kind of um chasing each deal, and each deal is different, and each deal matters in a different way to each person. And then when the buyers come back and say, I don't want that house anymore, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like, the buyer's agent needs to be able to educate their buyers and make sure that they know those days can't be extended just by them saying, I need to extend this. It's not an option. The contract has legal dates in it.
I would say that I hear we miss the inspection deadline more times than I should. Um, I
It's a hard pill, right? It's a very hard
there's
pill.
there's nothing you can do. Actually, it's I've had them where so I sold a house in Carroll County in Westminster, just north of the town. Anyway, actually it was Manchester. I take it back. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, had the house on the market. It was a very unusual house. It had a full in-law on the side.
Oh, nice.
There was a pool. So there was rooms everywhere. There was bedrooms, bathrooms everywhere, right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
I get a contingent offer, and I explained to the seller. I said, we're contingent, but we can take backups. And she goes, okay, I'll take it because I want to move. I need to get out of here. I live by myself in this monster.
Yeah.
Days comes and goes, and the agent asked for an extension, and I was like, we can't. The seller says, no, not without a price reduction. Well, the seller's not ready. I said, look, let's just do it this way. I don't have anything else. Let's just let you go. The original contract was written structural, mechanical, and radon, right?
Okay. The
So that
original.
that contract died. So I get another one, and structural, mechanical, radon's not checked.
And it's the same buyer.
So this was kind of funky. It's the same buyer. However,
Yeah.
the lady
Yeah.
who owned the brokerage, who wrote the first offer, retired and sold her brokerage to one of her friends who was an
Okay.
agent there. This
Yeah.
transpired in that summer, right?
Yeah.
And she told me when she wrote the first contract that she's intending to sell her business to so and so would be taking over the listing for the buyers.
Okay.
And I said, okay,
Right.
no problem, right? So anyway,
Whatever. Right.
so I go to meet the appraiser during this inspection phase, right?
Hmm.
And I walk downstairs, and what's hanging from the ceiling? An inspection canister box.
Oh, radon.
And I said, well, and I had the folder with me, so I looked back through and I said, no radon. So I called the seller to say I spoke to the VA appraiser, and she said, some of the comps that she had and I had were similar, and she didn't feel like it was going to be a problem hitting the number.
Yep.
And I said to her, "Did you see that thing in your basement?" She said, "Yes, I almost cut it down." I said, "Don't cut it down.
Don't touch it.
You don't
Right.
you don't own that. Don't cut that
Yeah.
down. Don't
Yeah.
touch it." Right. So I get it. And this is Manchester in Carroll County, so we all know the radon number is going to be high,
Are
right?
they're high? Yep.
So the agent sends me a remediation request.
And you're like,
And I
sorry.
sent her a text and I said, "I don't see where on your inspection addendum," I sent a screenshot, "that you specifically indicated that you were going to do radon and section 8 or 9 wasn't checked, any other inspection recommended by the inspection company." So
Right.
as it turned out, that went away. How she worked it out, I don't know.
Right. She probably paid it.
She
She
probably
probably
paid,
paid to have it
probably
remediated.
paid it. But
If
you
she's a
know,
good agent and
if
she
if
screwed up, then it's on
when
her, right?
so
I mean, that's how I feel.
so back to the whole buyer agency thing.
Yeah.
Hire talent, get your own representation. In a perfect world, the listing brokerage will be offering a commission that covers what you agreed that was the minimum commission that the buyer brokerage had specified in your
Yeah.
agreement.
Yeah.
And then you're on down the road to the next chapter in your life. And we'll be there when
100%.
you are ready to sell again. But get your own representation. Oh, I know what I was going to say earlier. I almost feel, Sue, and I don't know about you, I almost feel like the buyers out there, especially the younger buyers, don't know quite how we operate. So they're reluctant to hire buyers agents because of that lack of knowing. And they feel
Right.
like we're going to hand them a bill. Like
Well,
we're,
and that's what right. That's kind of, I think that's why this podcast is so important. I mean, I really do believe for everybody involved in this podcast, whether you're a buyer, seller, lender, title officer, whatever, people make better decisions when they're educated.
100%.
Right? I mean, it's just once you know, my I, I won't say personal stuff, but um I was in a situation where when you're representing a buyer, realtors out there in this market right now, and shame on you realtors that are overpricing your homes by $50,000, $75,000 and letting those days accumulate on the market. Because last week, John, I showed a house, right? 799. 799 was the list price. I come home, my buyer's all excited. Now we don't pull comps when we go to show you the house. We pull them when you say you like it. The amount of time that we would be putting into giving you comps on a house just to go see it, it's not worth it for anybody,
No.
right? So when you say, oh my gosh, I want to put an offer on this house, if your agent is not going home and pulling comps for you that show you the sales in that neighborhood, you're not being given the service that you deserve.
Yep.
So that being said, right, I come home, I pull comps, and I'm looking and I'm like, wait a minute, just the comp 760 was one of them, and it was 1,000 square feet more in better condition that backed up to like nothing versus this one that backed up to another house. And I'm like looking at this and I'm going, no, this house is worth $750,000 max.
Yeah.
Max. That's giving them more than you should. This house has 2,400 or 2,500 square feet about. That one has 3,200 square feet and it's $40,000 cheaper, and all the upgrades have been done on the new one
Yeah. And
or on the old one.
the problem lies here.
Yeah.
So when said seller asks said listing agent to put their house on the market overpriced,
Yes.
and then the conversation as the days on market,
Yeah.
and they say, "Well, why don't they just make me an offer?" And
A hundred
I said,
times.
"Listen, your price said to the buyer, you've had how many showings?"
Yep.
Right? And I go back to number of showings. I had 18 showings, and
Yep.
you've had no offers, and your house you could eat off the floor. And I said, the number's wrong.
Yeah.
And you argue with me. No, it's not. No, it's not. Blah, blah, blah. The buyer is saying, not only will I not make you an offer, I'm not interested because here's what a buyer reads into an overpriced listing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a seller who's overly attached to a property. I
Right.
have a seller that's probably generally going to be difficult. So
Yeah.
as I progress through the process and I find things and I ask them to remedy them, I'm going to get negative pushback and flack.
100%.
And
Every time.
so I would say so the buyer says to me, like the buyer probably said to you, Jesus, Sue, I don't want to get into that with them.
Well,
And I
I
like the
literally
house.
had
I
to
like
say to
the
her,
house.
right? I had to say, look, the value of this property based on these comps at the most is 750.
Right.
Do you want to pay 800? Because in all honesty, that appraiser might come in and give you 800 if they're not doing their job.
Yeah.
And looking at the difference in the square footage and
Yep.
looking at the difference in the location and the difference in the upgrades. I mean, it could happen. We've had buyers that are upset that their offer appraised. They thought they were going to be smarter than the appraiser, and they counted on an appraiser coming in and giving them a lower price, when in actuality, the appraiser was like, oh, yeah, okay, 800, here you go. You know what I mean? The bottom line is that as an agent, you've got to make sure that
Yeah.
you're priced well. That it's so important that you understand and that you educate yourself. This is the biggest transactions that you're going to do
Yeah.
financially. And who you hire to represent you absolutely matters, right? And it doesn't matter if they're brand new. They could have a parent that's been a realtor for 30 years and they could know the business in and out because they literally have been in 1,000 houses and have watched that parent, you know, sell
Yeah.
200 houses.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that that person doesn't know how to work with you at all.
Mhm.
You could be brand new in this market and do everything right.
Yeah.
You could absolutely do everything right. But the minute that somebody says, well, I know your neighborhood really well, you need to say, okay, well, there's my door.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how well you know the neighborhood at
Yeah.
all. It doesn't matter. What matters is that what your neighbor sold for, what their
Yeah.
square footage is, what your sales price should be, how you're going to market it. Like, all the stuff that generally that agent, that realtor has to get online and research, because how surprised have we been every time we get online?
Yeah.
The
The thing,
prices change immediately.
we spend more time
Yep.
in
I know what you're going to say.
contract related issues than we do on um, I mean, not that pictures and staging or
Yeah, all
the
that matters,
property,
but
preparing the property, all those things are important. But
yeah,
where we earn the difference is knowing what should happen when it should happen, and
yeah,
how to stay in our lane so that a missed date doesn't backfire and cost client money. In this industry, you can
100%.
make a mistake and cost your client 10 grand. I guarantee you're going to get an ethics complaint.
And you
Friend or
should.
foe,
And you should.
you should, because you're supposed to know what you're supposed to know.
I had I had a buyer's agent show up to my sellers, knock on their door and say, "Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask you a few questions." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? What do
Yeah.
you mean you went to my seller's house and knocked on their door?"
Yep. I've had
And
that.
she's like, "Oh, well, I didn't want to bother you." Like, okay, go back to real estate school. You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not your client. Don't talk to my seller.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're
Yeah.
literally, people don't understand the differences between agents. Like,
Yeah.
just because they have a license does not mean that they're qualified to buy or sell your home.
Right.
You've got to do your homework, buyers, sellers,
Yeah.
realtors. You've got to learn. You've got to learn how to do it right. And then be very careful, because every one of us has run into a situation where you pull comps and you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, I still do it, where I'm shocked that the prices for that Ellicott City townhouse are in the sixes. I'm like,
Oh
what?
yeah, they are
I
in the
sold that for
sixes.
300 3 years ago.
Yeah, they are in the sixes, and I know what property
And
you're
you know,
talking
yeah,
about.
and now all of a sudden they're six. So
I know what
you
property
know,
you're talking about.
we'll be back again Friday, I think, or
Yes.
next week. You know,
Yep.
we have another episode that's already been recorded that's going to come out, I think, on Friday, Thursday, or Friday this week. So there'll be another one. This one will come out either, I think, Monday or Tuesday of next week, and then we'll have another one, you know, Wednesday or Thursday. We do have somebody that edits these for us, so you know, we're kind of on his schedule as well.
Yep.
But we're figuring it out. We're getting better on the videos. We're getting better on the audios. You know, everything that we're doing. Thank you for being
Good.
patient with us.
Yeah. Good.
And
Good
we,
conversation today. Good
yeah,
conversation today.
absolutely important conversation today, right?
Absolutely.
Like really
100%.
important.
Yep.
Um, let us know if you have any questions. Let us know how we can help you. We're here for you, realtors. We're here for you, buyers, lenders, title companies,
Yep.
whatever, buyers, sellers. You know, help us help you. I want that to be our little thing. Help us help you.
Absolutely.
At
Everybody
the
have
end
a
of the
great week.
day, yeah,
See
at the
ya.
end of the day.